Championship week. I mean, a moment you've been waiting a long time to get back to, I guess. Give us the emotions right now as it's closing in.
There's so many emotions. I mean, I'm excited, a little bit nervous, but I feel that, it's been so many years and this fight is such a long time coming. I'm almost just like that feeling of finally, like it's here.
Was there ever a time along the way that you thought, like, they're never going to let me get back there, no matter how many wins I have? Because it kept seeming like as the wins added up, they'd still find another person to put in there, another reason to do a rematch or what have you.
I didn't know what to think. I was always hoping. I knew I was in talks of it early on because I was even put in as a last minute replacement to fight Whaley back then. So I knew I was in their head of just right along those brinks. But you keep fighting, you keep winning. They can only hold it from you for so long. So I knew it was just a matter of time. Whatever I had to do to solidify that place, I was going to do it.
Did you ever hear, and I'm sure you did, it was like, well, Carla's great, but she's not as marketable. These are a little bit more marketable, a little bit more personable. When you hear stuff like that as an athlete, it's kind of the reality of the sport, right? But is it a little bit frustrating to hear that? And does it make you think of changing your approach to things?
For me, it's all about being genuine and being myself. And some people kind of have that star quality or, they're more outgoing or more outspoken. But I think the sport is great in a way that it does need its trash talkers, this and that. But I think it's good to have, that balance and that combination of people who are maybe a little bit more humble or quiet. And I really feel good about getting this far in the sport and just being totally genuinely myself.
You mentioned how many years it's been. It's crazy how long it's been. I mean, can you compare yourself then as a person, as a fighter? I mean, are you still the same, or do you feel like just entirely different at this point?
I think anybody with, almost 8 years down the line of since I won the title, I think anyone is going to change a lot. And I don't think you could be in this sport for that long without having a lot of evolution in your game. And as a person, I mean, just so many life changes in your 20s and your 30s. I definitely feel different, but it's almost a good feeling. I feel more mature, I feel more comfortable in this place. Now being at Fight Week feels more like I'm at home.
Rose, at this point, does she present a more difficult? I mean, as you said, you've evolved, she's evolved as well, right? But do you see her as a more dangerous opponent at this point, or do you still see the styles match up very similar?
I think stylistically we're still similar to what we were back in the day, but I think that we both evolved a lot. I think when we originally fought, she was a lot greener to the sport, and now she's been in so many high-level fights, so many title fights. I think that she has a lot more composure now, and in those spaces, and is a little bit more comfortable on that big stage. So I think that's going to definitely play a big factor. And, she was dangerous back then, and she's dangerous now.
Last thing for me, I guess, what would this mean to you? I mean, obviously being a UFC champion is the goal, right? But does it answer critics, or is it about completing a journey? I mean, what would this title mean for you?
This title would mean pretty much, everything to me. It would be just the accumulation of all this hard work, all these years, and for me, it would really make a statement, not just as a fighter or as a person, but it would show hey, you can lose, you can stumble along the way, but you can fight your way back if you put the work in and you evolve in this sport.
Carla, I mean, you two essentially kicked off this division back in the day in 2014, which is a little weird to think about. But 8 years later now, as you sit here, when you look around at what this division has become, what does it feel like for you?
I feel so proud to look at how far this division has come in all these years that, since we pretty much started it here at the UFC, it's just there's constantly a new influx of these young fighters, and it's really blown up. I would say proudly that the UFC, the strawweight division in the UFC is probably one of the bigger, more divisions with more attention on it, and there's so much competition, especially before they had the 125 division. Everyone was coming down, so I just feel like we've seen this division come a long way, and I'm just proud to be to have kind of started it essentially, and to still be a part of it at the top of it today.
Yeah, it's the longevity aspect of it, because there was a stretch where after your championship reign, it seemed like struggling a little bit. You went 3-4 over 7, and it almost felt as if the MMA community sort of started to write you off a tiny bit. And I wonder for you, during that stretch, was there questions in your mind, like, of whether you would ever get back to a point like this?
There's always like new tough fighters. So, I mean, there's always a question of whether you can, get back to a place like this after having losses. But, I just got the statistic that the longest time that anyone's ever gotten a title back is, I think, like 4 years or something along those lines. So, I mean, this hasn't been done, so for me, it would just, I don't know, it would just mean a lot. It'd be like a big statement.
I mean, is that something that you're particularly proud of, the fact that, 8 years later, you are still here, you are still in this discussion, you're still one of the best in the world in this division, whereas Rose was, like, very young when that first fight happened?
Yeah, most definitely. And even before I came to the UFC, I mean, I came in as the Invicta champ. So I feel like I've been at this top of the game for a really long time and fighting the best of the best. And it's been cool to kind of like see the level of competition grow and grow. And just honestly going back and watching mine and Rose fight and kind of seeing where we were back then and where we are now is just like, whoa, it's really come a long way.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about her evolution a little bit, I mean, when you look at her today in 2022, why is this a good matchup for you still?
I think it's a good matchup for me. The same reason it was back then. I mean, obviously, it's an MMA fight. Anyone can win at any time. It's a dangerous sport, but at the same time, I mean, you still have your wrestler versus striker type of matchup. I think that my wrestling is still a step above hers. I had a lot of experience in it, but I feel it's kind of like the same matchup, but we were blue belts back then in MMA, and now we're like black belts. So should be exciting. I'm excited to go in there.
Absolutely, I think we're all excited for it. Last one for me. I'm just curious. I mean, the fight that's headlining the card, I think, is one of the most anticipated fights of the year for most people. Gaethje and Oliveira. I'm just curious for your thoughts on that fight, your excitement for it, and how you think it'll play out.
Man, these guys are just such high-level fighters. It's been fun watching their careers and their styles. And what's funny is Oliveira actually headlined the first time that Rose and I fought that many years ago. So I'm kind of like, oh, that's cool. But it's been cool watching him actually grow like through these years and seeing him come up in his division. And I think he kind of had a similar like long road to the title, but like he's here and it's excited too. I'm excited. I think it's a good matchup. I think it's going to be a really fun fight.
When you see a guy like Charles, does that give you motivation of like, the long road, like you said?
It does give me motivation. It's just like, hey man, like we're here, we're veterans, we're all still here. Like it's cool. It's definitely cool to watch any veteran like, kind of just still be there like years later.
Hi, Carla. To your left over here. One of the greatest fights in UFC history is being ran back at UFC 275. What's your prediction for how the fight between Joanna and Zhang Weili goes?
That was such an amazing fight the first time. It was, I would say, mostly contended on the feet. So I think a lot of people are going to be expecting that again. But I wouldn't be surprised if Weili like went for her takedowns like she did against Rose and try to kind of switch up her game plan a little bit. I think that would be like a little unexpected, but I think it'll be another barn burner. I think it'll be fun to watch and definitely a super high level fight.
Do you think that's a number one contender fight, or do you think the winner of this one will face Marina Rodriguez?
I think that's really up to the UFC. It depends like how that fight goes. Just as in my last fight, like I made a statement, and I think if one of them makes a statement in that fight, it definitely could put them in contention for the next title fight.
And would winning the UFC title now mean more to you than winning it back in 2014 off the Ultimate Fighter tournament?
It would be really hard to say because, going through that whole Ultimate Fighter experience, and even before that, fighting for, years and not expecting women to even be in the UFC was such a historical moment. It was like a moment that I had never expected. It was super emotional. But now after all these years and kind of, having, losses going in and out and just working so hard to get back here, and the UFC is in such a different place, like, it would be really hard to compare it, but I hope I can let you know on Saturday.
The back left, back here. Carla, we've seen you win the Invicta title, the UFC title, be the inaugural champion. Does it feel different being the challenger this time?
Well, it's kind of interesting because when I fought for the Invicta title, I mean, it was we were both challenged. You know, we were both fighting. I wasn't the champion like defending, and same thing with the UFC belt when I first won that. So to me, it just feels like it's another fight with a lot on the line.
Thank you.
Thank you.